Every family has a moment that divides everything into two parts. Before it happened, and after. For us, it happened during a Sunday dinner in late October, when my younger sister leaned toward my 10-year-old daughter and said something she probably assumed I would never hear about. One sentence. That was all it took. My family later said I took things too far. They said I let my temper make decisions for me. A few of them even told me I was willing to tear the family apart over something a child would eventually forget. Maybe you'll agree with them. But before you decide, you need to know exactly what happened. My name is Mark Bennett. I'm 42 years old, and I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in a quiet neighborhood called North Highlands. It's not some fancy gated community. My house is a basic two-story place with a narrow driveway, a maple tree out front, and a garage that desperately needs a new coat of paint. But it's mine, and whenever my daughter Sophie stays with me, the place feels completely different. Sophie is 10. She's curious about everything, loves animals more than most people, and has this habit of asking questions right when you're least prepared to answer them. Her mother, Rachel, and I were together for almost 4 years. We tried. We really did. But eventually we had to admit that being decent parents separately was better than being miserable parents together. Rachel lives about 20 minutes away in New Haven. Sophie stays with her most of the time, but I get every other weekend, Wednesday evenings, holidays we split down the middle, and extra days whenever Rachel's work schedule gets complicated. I protect that time like it's sacred. That particular weekend had been a good one. Friday night, Sophie and I ordered pizza and played a board game. She somehow beats me at every single time. Saturday morning, we went to a little diner she loves on North Clinton Street. She ordered chocolate chip pancakes, even though I reminded her she never finishes them. She promised she would. She didn't. After breakfast, we walked around a park for almost 2 hours because she had recently become fascinated with identifying birds. Then Saturday night, she convinced me to watch an animated movie she'd already seen 3 times. Apparently, my life wasn't complete until I'd seen it too. By Sunday afternoon, we were doing that slow, comfortable routine that comes at the end of a weekend. She packed her backpack. I washed dishes. She wandered around my house checking drawers and under furniture to make sure she hadn't forgotten anything. Then we headed to my mother's house for our monthly family dinner. Afterward, I planned to drive Sophie back to Rachel's. Routine. That's the important part. There was absolutely nothing unusual about that Sunday when we pulled into Mom's driveway. My mother, Carol Bennett, still lived in the same house where my sister and I grew up. It was an older brick house on the south side of Fort Wayne with 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, a basement Dad never finished, and a dining room that somehow seemed capable of stretching whenever enough people showed up. Dad died when I was 26. Heart attack. Fast. No warning. After that, Mom's house became the center of the family. Once a month, usually the second Sunday, everybody came over. My younger sister, Lauren, was 34. Lauren could be funny, charming, and incredibly generous when she wanted to be. She could walk into a room full of strangers and leave knowing everyone's name. But Lauren also had another quality. She believed, somewhere deep inside herself, that life was supposed to work out for her. Not because she had earned it, just because it should. She wasn't obnoxious about it. That would have been easier. Instead, it came out in little things. Someone else always picked up the check. Someone else handled the paperwork. Someone else solved the emergency. Someone else made the phone call. And for years, that someone was usually me. My Uncle Ron and his wife Diane came to those dinners too. They lived outside Auburn and rarely missed one. My cousins Jason and Melissa were usually there. Mom cooked the same kind of food almost every month. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, macaroni and cheese, biscuits, apple pie if she had time. That house smelled like my childhood. Sophie loved going there. The second we walked through the front door, she usually disappeared into the kitchen to find Grandma. Helping Grandma mostly meant stealing shredded cheese and asking approximately 40 questions about whatever Mom happened to be cooking. At dinner, Sophie normally sat beside me. She wasn't shy exactly. She just liked listening to adults. And believe me, that kid listened. You could mention something once, and she'd remember it 6 months later. That Sunday, I was in the kitchen helping Mom carry dishes. She was telling me the furnace had started making a strange clicking sound. I told her I'd come by Tuesday and take a look. Meanwhile, everyone was talking in the dining room. Ron was complaining about property taxes. Jason was scrolling through his phone. Melissa was telling Diane something about a coworker. Lauren sat toward the far end. Sophie happened to be beside her. I was carrying a bowl of mashed potatoes into the dining room when I noticed something. The room had changed. It wasn't silent, but the energy was different. If you've been around the same people long enough, you recognize that feeling. Something had just happened. Nobody wanted to be the first person to acknowledge it. I put the bowl down. Then I looked at Sophie. She was staring straight at her plate. Her hands were underneath the table. Her shoulders were raised almost to her ears. I knew that posture. She was trying to disappear. "You all right, Soph?" She nodded. Didn't look at me. My eyes moved toward Lauren. Lauren was calmly buttering a biscuit. Nothing unusual. No guilt. No concern. Nothing. I sat down beside Sophie. I asked if she wanted potatoes. She shook her head. That alone told me something was wrong, because Sophie would normally trade information for mashed potatoes. Dinner continued. I watched her. 5 minutes later, she asked Grandma if she could use the bathroom. "Of course, sweetheart." Sophie disappeared down the hallway. Another few minutes passed. Something in my stomach wouldn't settle. I stood. "Be right back." I walked into the hallway. As I got near the bathroom, I heard it. Crying. Quiet crying. The kind where somebody is working hard not to make noise. I knocked softly. "Sophie." Everything stopped. Then came her little voice. "I'm okay, Dad." I knew immediately she wasn't. I opened the door. She was sitting on the closed toilet lid with her face turned away from me. Her cheeks were wet. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed that I'd seen. I crouched in front of her. "Hey." She wouldn't look at me. I put my hand on her knee. "You don't have to pretend with me." That did it. Her mouth started trembling. I pulled her against me. For maybe 30 seconds, I didn't ask anything. I just held her. Finally, I said, "Tell me what happened." She sniffed. "Aunt Lauren said something." "What did she say?" Sophie stared at the floor. "She said maybe I shouldn't come to family dinners." I felt my chest tighten. I kept my voice calm. "Why would she say that?" Sophie hesitated. Then she said the sentence I will probably remember for the rest of my life. She said I was the reason people were embarrassed. I stared at her. "What exactly did she tell you?" Sophie rubbed her sleeve across her eyes. "She said you and Mom weren't married when I was born." That part was true. Rachel and I weren't married. We never were. But Sophie wasn't finished. She said Grandma didn't raise you that way. And she said everybody knows I wasn't planned. For a few seconds I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't have anything to say. Because I had too much. "What else?" Sophie looked up at me. She said I should know the truth instead of everybody pretending. I sat beside my 10-year-old daughter in my mother's bathroom and felt something inside me go completely still. Anger doesn't always feel hot. Sometimes real anger is cold. Very cold. The kind that makes every detail suddenly clear. I wanted to walk into that dining room and scream. Instead, I looked at Sophie. "Sophie Marie, listen to me." She looked at me. "You were not a mistake." Her eyes filled again. "You sure?" That question nearly broke me. I took both her hands. "I'm more sure about that than anything else in my life." "But Aunt Lauren said." "I don't care what Aunt Lauren said." I softened my voice. "Your mom and I didn't stay together." "That's true. We made mistakes." "That's also true. But you were never one of them." She stared at me. I continued. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me. If I could go back and change every decision I ever made, I'd still make every decision necessary to get you." Her face crumpled. "Promise. On everything I have." She leaned against me. I held her for another minute. Then I stood. "Stay here for a second." "Where are you going?" "To have a conversation." "Dad." "What?" "Don't yell." Even after somebody hurt her, she was worried about causing trouble. That told me everything. "I won't yell." And I didn't. I walked back into that dining room. Everyone was still eating. Chicken on the plates. Steam rising from the potatoes. Football playing from the television in the living room. It looked so normal that it almost made what had happened worse. I stood behind my chair. "Lauren." She looked up. "What?" "What did you say to Sophie?" Nobody moved. Lauren rolled her eyes slightly. That tiny gesture almost did more damage than anything else. I talked to her. "About what?" "Mark, don't do this. I'm asking you a question." Uncle Ron stopped eating. Jason put down his phone. Mom looked between us. Lauren sighed. "I told her some things she's old enough to understand." "She's 10. Exactly. She's not a baby." I leaned forward. "Did you tell my 10-year-old daughter that she embarrasses this family?" Lauren frowned. "That's not exactly what I said." "Then tell me exactly what you said." She looked around the table as if she couldn't believe she was being questioned. I told her people made choices before she was born, and that those choices weren't exactly something Mom and Dad would have been proud of. I stared at her. You told her she wasn't planned. Well, she wasn't. The room went dead quiet. I couldn't believe how casually she said it. Lauren, she is crying in the bathroom. Lauren shrugged. Then you're making it bigger by treating it like some tragedy. My mother finally spoke. Lauren, maybe that wasn't appropriate. Mom, please. Everybody is acting like I insulted the kid. You did insult her, I said. No, I told her the truth. You told a 10-year-old girl that her existence embarrassed her family. That's not what I meant. That's what she heard. Lauren crossed her arms. She'll get over it. There it was. The sentence that changed everything. Not the first one. That one. She'll get over it. I looked around the table. My mother looked uncomfortable. Uncle Ron cleared his throat. Mark, maybe everybody should cool down. Diane nodded slightly. Jason stared at his plate. Melissa wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom reached toward me. Sweetheart, let's finish dinner and talk afterward. Finish dinner. My daughter was crying alone in a bathroom because her aunt had convinced her she was a source of shame. And everybody wanted me to eat mashed potatoes. Something became very clear to me. Nobody at that table was going to defend Sophie the way she needed defending. So I would. I grabbed my coat. Sophie. She came down the hallway carrying her backpack. Her eyes were red. I held out my hand. She took it immediately. Mom stood. Mark, I'll call you tomorrow, Mom. Please don't leave angry. I'm not angry at you. That wasn't completely true, but I wasn't ready to deal with that part. I looked at Lauren. She had already picked up her fork again. We left. For the first 10 minutes of the drive, Sophie said nothing. I didn't force her. Eventually, she put her hand on the center console. I covered it with mine. 5 minutes later, she fell asleep. I drove through Fort Wayne watching streetlights slide across the windshield. By the time we reached Rachel's house, I knew I wasn't going to let this become one of those family incidents everyone pretends never happened. Rachel opened the door. She looked at Sophie, then at me. What happened? I'll call you. Her face changed. Mark, she's okay. Just tired. Rachel knew me well enough to realize that wasn't the whole story. She took Sophie inside. I drove home. Then I sat down at my kitchen table. I didn't turn on the television. Didn't pour a drink. Didn't call anybody. I took a yellow legal pad out of a drawer. And I started writing. Because here's something I had never really considered before that night. When you spend enough years helping people, they stop seeing the help. It becomes part of the furniture. Expected. Normal. Invisible. Nobody says, Mark is paying for this. They just think, this gets paid. Nobody says, Mark solved that problem. The problem simply disappears. And somewhere along the way, generosity stops looking like generosity and starts looking like an obligation. So I made a list. Lauren's apartment. She lived in a newer complex near downtown Fort Wayne. Rent was around $1,550 a month. 3.5 years earlier, she'd been struggling financially after changing jobs. She couldn't qualify for the apartment alone. I co-signed. Then, because her income still wasn't enough, I started covering $850 of her rent every month. I never announced it. Never reminded her. Never asked to be paid back. 36 months. Then 40. Then 42. You can do the math. Her car was another story. A 2022 Toyota Camry. Lauren needed something reliable after her old car died. I went with her to the dealership. She financed most of it. 6 months later, she started falling behind. I quietly paid $12,600 toward the balance. Then there was her insurance. She was on my policy because the rate was better. I covered it. Her professional certification program at Purdue Fort Wayne. 2 semesters. A little over $7,000. Paid. When her laptop died, I bought her another one. When she needed dental work and her insurance didn't cover everything, I paid $1,100. When she wanted to go to Chicago with friends for her birthday, I sent her $500. Why? Because she was my sister. That was enough reason for me. Mom was different. After Dad died, Mom struggled more than she admitted. I noticed. So every month I transferred $1,000 into her account. She never asked. I never planned to stop. That wasn't leverage. That was taking care of my mother. But as I sat at that kitchen table looking at the numbers, I realized something uncomfortable. For years I had been quietly supporting the same people who had sat around a dining room table while my daughter was humiliated. And when I objected, I was told to calm down. So I decided to calm down. Completely. Monday, I went to work. Tuesday, I made phone calls. First, the apartment management company. I reviewed my co-signer agreement and asked to be removed at the earliest date allowed under the contract. They explained the process. I followed it. Lauren would need to qualify on her own, provide another guarantor, or increase her deposit. Fine. Second call. Insurance. I removed Lauren's vehicle from my policy effective at the end of the paid period. Third call. The school billing office. I informed them I would no longer cover Lauren's next tuition installment after the current term. That was it. No screaming. No threats. No dramatic family group message. I didn't call Lauren. I didn't tell Mom. I didn't post anything online. I simply stopped. Then I waited. It took 9 days. I was watching Sophie at soccer practice when my phone rang. Lauren. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Hello. What did you do? No hello. No small talk. What are you talking about? My apartment. Sophie was running across the field in front of me, ponytail bouncing behind her. The office called me. They said you're removing yourself as guarantor. That's correct. Why? I changed my financial arrangements. What does that even mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. Mark, I can't qualify for this place by myself. I know. Silence. Then, you know? Yes. So you're trying to get me thrown out? No. How is this not you getting me thrown out? I'm not making your landlord do anything. I'm just no longer guaranteeing your rent. That's the same thing. No, Lauren. It isn't. Her breathing got heavier. This is about Sophie. I watched my daughter steal the ball from another girl and sprint downfield. Yes. Are you serious? Very. You're financially punishing me because I had a conversation with your daughter? There it was again. A conversation. I almost laughed. Instead I said, you told a 10-year-old child that she embarrassed her family. I did not say it like that. She cried in the bathroom because of you. You're twisting everything. I'm repeating what happened. Mark, come on. I already told you she'll get over it. My grip tightened around the phone. She asked Rachel 2 nights ago whether Grandma wishes she had never been born. Lauren said nothing. That's what your little conversation did. Still nothing. She asked her mother whether Grandma loves her less because we weren't married. Lauren finally said, quieter, I didn't know that. Of course you didn't. You never asked. Another silence. Then her tone changed. Okay, fine. I'm sorry. It sounded rushed. Necessary. Like a password she hoped would unlock her old life. I'm sorry, Mark. Is that what you want? Strangely, hearing it gave me no satisfaction. None. I just felt exhausted. Thank you. So you'll call the apartment office? No. What? I accept your apology. That doesn't mean everything immediately goes back to normal. Are you kidding? No. Then what's the point of apologizing? I looked toward the field. Sophie saw me and waved. I waved back. The point is that you're sorry. Lauren didn't answer. When Sophie is okay, when she stops asking whether this family is ashamed of her, then we can talk about what our relationship looks like. So that's it. For now. This is insane. No, Lauren. What's insane is that I've spent years helping you without keeping score, and the first time I stop, suddenly I'm the person destroying the family. She went quiet. I didn't even know how much I was doing until I wrote it down. Mark, I'm done talking tonight. I hung up. 2 days later, Uncle Ron called. He tried to sound casual. Didn't work. Hey, Mark. Hey. Your mom told me Lauren's having some trouble with her apartment. She is. I heard you were involved somehow. I was her guarantor. I ended it. Ron sighed. Look, I understand you're angry about dinner. I'm not discussing dinner as if somebody spilled gravy. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He paused. I just think families shouldn't destroy relationships over one bad comment. I stood in my kitchen holding a coffee mug. Ron, did you know I've paid most of Lauren's rent for over 3 years? Silence. No. Did you know I paid over $12,000 toward her car? No. Her insurance? No. Tuition? Another pause. No. Exactly. His voice changed. Mark, I honestly didn't know. I know. Why didn't you ever tell anybody? Because I didn't think helping my sister required an audience. Ron went quiet. Then he said something I appreciated. I'm sorry. Not, however. Just sorry. I should have said something at dinner. Yes. I thought I was keeping the peace. I know. But I guess keeping the peace for Lauren meant Sophie had to carry the discomfort instead. That surprised me. Yeah, I'm sorry, son. That conversation mattered. Mom called the following afternoon. She started the way mothers always do. Have you eaten? Yes. What? Sandwich. That's not dinner. It's 3 in the afternoon, Mom. You know what I mean. We went around like that for a few minutes. Then she asked about Sophie. Better. Is she sleeping? Mostly. Mom became quiet. Lauren came here yesterday. I figured. She's scared. I know. She may have to move. I know. Another silence. Mark, I don't want to interfere. I almost smiled. That sentence always means interference is coming. But she's your sister. And Sophie is my daughter. I know. No, Mom. I need you to really hear me. She didn't speak. Sophie asked Rachel if you were ashamed of her. I heard Mom inhale. She what? She thinks you might be embarrassed that she exists. Oh God. That's what Lauren gave her. Mom started crying. I would never. I know that. I love that little girl. I know. Does she know? She does now. I sat down. But Mom, when Lauren said what she said and I confronted her, everybody wanted dinner to continue. I didn't know Sophie was crying. Would it have mattered if she wasn't? Mom didn't answer. That's what I've been thinking about. I softened my voice. I love you. I'm not cutting you off. Your monthly money stays exactly the same. Mark, I don't care about the money. I know. That's why yours stays. She cried harder at that. I've been supporting Lauren for years because I thought that's what family did. But when Sophie needed somebody to stand up for her, everybody suddenly became neutral. I'm sorry. I know. I should have stopped Lauren. Yes. I should have gone after Sophie. Yes. I'm sorry. This time, I believed her. We talked another 20 minutes. Before hanging up, Mom asked if she could call Sophie. I told her yes. That evening she did. I wasn't there, but Rachel told me afterward that Mom spent almost half an hour talking to Sophie. Not defending herself. Not explaining Lauren. Just telling her stories about when she was a baby. How Dad used to carry her around the house. How Mom kept a photograph of Sophie in her wallet. How the first time Sophie said, "Grandma," Mom cried in the grocery store parking lot. That helped more than anything I could have done. About 4 weeks after that dinner, someone knocked on my door. It was a Wednesday. Sophie was with me, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. I opened the door. Lauren stood there. She looked tired. Not movie star tired. Actually tired. Hair tied back. No makeup. Old jacket. Hands in her pockets. I'm not here for money, she said. I didn't respond. I'm not asking you to fix the apartment. Still nothing. I just want to talk. I stepped aside. She entered. Sophie looked up. For 1 second I saw the change in her face. That hurt more than I expected. Before that Sunday, Aunt Lauren had just been Aunt Lauren. Now there was caution. Children shouldn't have to learn caution around family. Lauren saw it too. I could tell. She stopped near the kitchen. Hey, sophomore. Hi. Sophie returned to her homework. Lauren looked at me. I pointed toward the coffee maker. Coffee. She nodded. While I poured it, Sophie stood. I have something. She walked to her backpack, pulled out a folded piece of notebook paper. Then she walked toward Lauren. This is for you. Lauren looked at me. I shrugged. I had no idea. She unfolded the paper. Sophie had written it herself. Her handwriting was large and careful. There was a little dog drawn at the bottom. The letter said, "Dear Aunt Lauren, Dad told me I am not a mistake. Mom told me that too. Grandma called me and told me she loves me and she is not embarrassed about me. I looked up what it means when parents aren't married. It doesn't mean the kid did something wrong. I forgive you because Dad says forgiving somebody doesn't mean what they did was okay. It means you don't want to carry it forever. But you hurt me a lot. I cried because I thought everybody secretly wished I wasn't there. I don't think that anymore. I wanted you to know. Sophie Bennett. P.S. Grandma said Grandpa loved me before I could even talk." Lauren read it. Then she read it again. Her hand started shaking. She sat down, covered her mouth, and cried. I had seen Lauren cry before. This was different. No performance. No looking around to see who noticed. She folded over herself and cried like something inside her had finally cracked. Sophie stood there awkwardly for a few seconds. Then she reached over and patted Lauren on the arm. "It's okay." Lauren looked up. "No," she said. "It wasn't." Sophie didn't know what to say, so she went back to her homework. Honestly, that was probably the best thing she could have done. Lauren and I talked for almost 2 hours. She admitted something I hadn't expected. After Dad died, she'd spent years watching me become the dependable one. I helped Mom, handled repairs, dealt with paperwork, got promoted at work, bought a house, took care of Sophie. Whenever something went wrong, people called me. Lauren said she'd started comparing herself to me. At first it made her feel inadequate, then embarrassed, then angry. Eventually that anger turned into resentment. And because she couldn't admit she resented me, she started directing pieces of it toward my choices. Rachel, our relationship, Sophie being born before we had figured our lives out. Anything that proved I wasn't as perfect as she thought everyone believed I was. I wanted there to be something you had screwed up, she said. I stared at her. And you chose my daughter. She started crying again. I know. She's 10, Lauren. I know. You wanted to hurt me, so you used a 10-year-old girl to do it. I know. That was the first time she didn't defend herself. No explanation afterward. No, but just, I know. I appreciated that more than she probably realized. But forgiveness and restoration are different things. So when she finally asked, what happens now? I answered truthfully, I don't know. She nodded. I'm probably moving. I'm sorry. I can't afford the apartment. I figured. She waited. I didn't offer anything. I found a smaller place. Good. It's not as nice. You'll survive. She gave a small laugh. Probably. Then she asked, are you ever going to help me again? I thought carefully before answering. Maybe. She looked surprised. But not like before. What does that mean? It means if there's a real emergency and I can help, you're still my sister. But I'm not financing your lifestyle anymore. She nodded slowly. And the car? Yours. Insurance? Yours. School? Yours. Another nod. Okay. And none of that is revenge. I understand. I'm serious. I know. I didn't stop because I wanted you to suffer. I stopped because I finally realized I'd created a situation where you expected me to carry responsibilities that belonged to you. She stared at her coffee. You're right. And I don't want Sophie growing up believing love means letting people disrespect you as long as they're family. Lauren looked toward Sophie. She was drawing arrows between clouds on a science worksheet. She's a good kid. The best. I really am sorry. I know. Before Lauren left, she crouched beside Sophie. I read your letter. Sophie nodded. Thank you for writing it. Okay. And I'm sorry. Sophie studied her face. Then she said something that sounded exactly like a 10-year-old. You already said that. Lauren almost laughed. You're right. Then Sophie added, you can say it again if you want. So Lauren did. I'm sorry. Sophie nodded. Okay. That was it. No dramatic hug. No music. No perfect ending. Just okay. And maybe that was better. Real forgiveness doesn't always happen in one beautiful moment. Sometimes it's a door opening 2 inches. You don't force it wider. You wait. The family dinners stopped for a while. Nobody officially canceled them. We just didn't have one in November. Then December became complicated with holidays. By February, Mom called everyone. I'm cooking Sunday. Whoever wants to come can come. So we did. I brought Sophie. I asked her first. You want to go? She thought about it. Will Aunt Lauren be there? Probably. Another pause. Grandma's making macaroni? Yes. Then yes. Priorities. When we arrived, Lauren was already there. She didn't rush Sophie. Didn't force affection. She simply said hello. Later, she handed Sophie a wrapped present. Inside was a book about a girl who solved mysteries with a rescue dog. Lauren remembered Sophie liked dog stories. Sophie looked at the cover. Thank you. You're welcome. Then Sophie sat beside Grandma. That was progress. Not a movie ending. Progress. Uncle Ron found me in the kitchen later. He handed me a beer. I've been thinking about that night. That's dangerous. He laughed, then became serious. I should have backed you. I nodded. I thought staying neutral was the mature thing. People love neutrality when the problem isn't happening to them. Yeah. He looked toward the dining room. I understand that now. We clinked bottles. Mom cooked enough food for 20 people. Lauren brought dessert. Jason stayed off his phone for almost an entire meal, which might have been the most shocking development of the whole year. And Sophie? She talked. A lot. About school. Soccer. A dog she'd seen near Rachel's house. A science project. Nobody looked uncomfortable. Nobody treated her like a problem. Nobody whispered. Nobody needed to explain how she came into the world. She was simply Sophie. Exactly as she should have been all along. Lauren eventually moved out of the expensive apartment. She found a smaller place on the northeast side. She started paying her own insurance. Finished her certification program using a payment plan. 6 months later, she got a better job. Funny thing is, she seemed happier. More tired sometimes. More careful with money. But happier. Our relationship didn't magically become perfect. Some things take time. But now, when Lauren says thank you, I believe she understands what the words mean. And when she offers to help Mom, she actually shows up. As for me, I learned something I wish I'd understood years earlier. Helping people is good. Carrying people forever isn't always good. Sometimes constant rescue prevents someone from ever learning how strong their own legs are. And family doesn't get unlimited permission to hurt you simply because you share blood, especially when your child is involved. Some people still think I went too far. Maybe I did. But when I remember that Sunday, I don't think about the money. I don't think about Lauren losing her apartment. I don't even think about the argument. I remember opening that bathroom door. I remember seeing Sophie sitting there alone. I remember her asking me, "You sure?" She needed to know whether her own father believed she belonged in this world. There are questions a child should never have to ask. That was one of them. And if protecting her meant becoming the difficult person in my family for a while, I could live with that. I'd do it again. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted Lauren homeless. Not because I wanted anyone afraid of me. I'd do it because silence teaches children things too. If I'd returned to that table and finished dinner, Sophie would have learned something from that. She would have learned that adults can say cruel things to her, and everyone will keep eating. She would have learned that protecting family peace matters more than protecting her dignity. She would have learned that being related to somebody means accepting whatever they choose to say. I couldn't teach her that, so I chose the other lesson. I wanted her to learn that she can forgive somebody without pretending they didn't hurt her, that she can love family and still have boundaries, that saying, "This isn't okay," doesn't make her cruel, and most importantly, that she never has to earn her right to belong. A few months ago, Sophie and I were driving home from soccer. Out of nowhere, she asked, "Dad, yeah, did you really mean what you said in Grandma's bathroom?" I knew exactly what she meant. Every word. That I'm your whole reason? I smiled. Every single word. She stared out the window for a second. Then she said, "Good. That was all." She went back to telling me some extremely complicated story about two girls on her soccer team. But I drove the rest of the way home smiling. Because she remembered. Not Lauren's words. Mine. And maybe that's the part that matters most. We can't always control what people say to our children. We can't protect them from every cruel sentence, every judgment, every person who decides their opinion deserves to become someone else's wound. But we can control what happens afterward. We can decide whether they face it alone. We can decide whether keeping everyone comfortable is more important than standing beside the person who was hurt. And we can make damn sure the loudest voice they remember is the one telling them they matter. Sophie is 11 now. She's taller, more stubborn, still obsessed with dogs. Still convinced every grade below 100 requires a detailed investigation. Mom still hosts Sunday dinner. Uncle Ron still tells stories that take 15 minutes longer than necessary. Lauren and I are rebuilding something that is different from what we had before, but maybe healthier. And Sophie still sits beside me most Sundays. Sometimes she sits beside Lauren now too. Not always. Nobody forces it. That's her decision. One Sunday not long ago, I watched the two of them arguing over the last biscuit. Lauren finally broke it in half. Sophie inspected both pieces and accused her of taking the larger one. Lauren switched them. Sophie smiled. And for just a second, everything felt ordinary again. Not because we erased what happened. Because we didn't. We remembered it. We learned from it. And then we kept going. Maybe that's what family is supposed to be. Not people who never hurt each other. People are too flawed for that. Maybe family is supposed to be the place where, when someone gets hurt, we don't demand that they swallow it so everyone else can finish dinner comfortably. We listen. We take responsibility. We change. And if we're lucky, eventually we find our way back to the table. So here's the question I want to leave with you. If someone in your own family made your child feel ashamed simply for existing, and everyone else told you to let it go to keep the peace, would you forgive and move on? Or would you make sure they finally understood that disrespecting your child comes with consequences?